My name is Aisha Khan, 26 years old, and until last month, I believed my parents loved me unconditionally. Then, at their anniversary celebration, glasses of lassi in hand, I overheard them confiding to friends they regretted having me. If we hadn't had Aisha, our lives would have been so different. Baba sighed, while Ami nodded in agreement. My world shattered quietly. I didn't confront them or make a scene. I just packed my things when they weren't looking and left. But I deliberately left my childhood diary behind. Before I share what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join me on this emotional journey. For as long as I can remember, I've been the devoted daughter, shaping my entire life to make Imran and Noor Khan proud. My childhood home in a bustling Karachi neighborhood was vibrant from the outside. Colorful Jaroka balconies, jasmine vines climbing the walls, and family photos adorning every shelf. I grew up believing we were the perfect Pakistani family, the kind you'd see in those heartfelt Eid commercials where everyone gathers around a steaming biryani platter while qawwali music plays softly. Baba was a respected engineer at a local firm, and Ami taught Urdu literature at the school just 2 streets away. They attended every school event, cheered the loudest at my poetry recitals, and seemed genuinely invested in my happiness. At least, that's what I thought for over 2 decades of my life. My relationship with them felt strong, built on mutual respect and love. When I graduated high school as top of my class, the pride on their faces seemed unmistakable. They hugged me tightly after my speech, Baba whispering, "You've made us so proud. Aisha." Those words became my guide, shaping every major decision I made afterward. I chose medicine because Ami once mentioned how honorable the profession was, even though my art teacher, Ms. Farida, had pulled me aside in my final year with life-changing news. "Aisha, you've been offered a full scholarship to the National College of Arts in Lahore. This is a rare opportunity." The acceptance letter arrived while my parents were at work, and I stared at it for hours, tracing the intricate logo, imagining a life surrounded by sketchbooks and creativity. But when I brought it up at dinner, Baba's expression shifted subtly. "Art is a beautiful passion, Aisha, but it's not a stable career. We just want security for you." Ami reached across the table, patting my hand. "Medicine will use your compassion. You've always been such a caring girl." So I declined the scholarship and enrolled in medical school instead. The acceptance letter went into my diary, pressed between pages documenting my sacrifice, along with a dried marigold from Ms. Farida's goodbye bouquet. She'd looked heartbroken when I told her my decision. I excelled at medical school, throwing myself into biology classes and hospital rotations with determination, if not passion. After graduation, I could have taken a position at Aga Khan Hospital in Islamabad, an opportunity my classmates envied. But my parents mentioned how quiet the house would feel without me. So I moved back home and took a job at a local clinic. For 5 years, I built my career as a pediatric doctor, finding genuine joy in helping my young patients despite the path not being my first choice. I kept a small corner in my bedroom for sketching, creating Mehendi-inspired designs during rare free time between clinic shifts. My best friend, Zara, couldn't understand my choices. "Aisha, you're 26 still living with your parents and working at a clinic 10 minutes from your childhood home," she'd said during our chai date last spring. "When are you going to live for yourself?" I'd stirred my chai, watching the cardamom swirl into patterns. "They've given me everything. Is it so wrong to want to be there for them?" Zara gave me that look, mixing pity with frustration. There's a difference between being there for someone and sacrificing your entire life for them. I'd changed the subject. My brother Bilal hadn't made the same choices. He'd moved to Dubai right after university, pursuing his architecture career with single-minded focus. He called on Eid and sent luxurious gifts, but rarely visited. Ami and Baba never complained. But I noticed how Ami lingered over his occasional postcards, how Baba casually mentioned Bilal's projects to neighbors. I compensated for Bilal's absence by being ever present, handling their household paperwork, driving Ami to appointments, helping Baba with the garden. When their 25th anniversary approached, I dove into planning with characteristic thoroughness. I coordinated with their friends for a surprise rooftop celebration, ordered a custom cake recreating their wedding design, and spent weeks secretly planning the perfect gift. A family trip to Turkey, the destination they'd always dreamed of visiting. I'd been saving for 2 years, taking extra shifts and cutting personal expenses. The envelope with 3 tickets I'd even convinced Bilal to join us was wrapped and hidden in my wardrobe, ready for the perfect moment. In the weeks leading up to the party, I transformed our rooftop into an elegant venue, stringing fairy lights through the neem tree, arranging rented tables with rose petal centerpieces, and hanging photos chronicling their 25 years together. I wanted everything to be perfect, a testament to the family bond I valued above all else. The night before the party, I stayed up until 2 a.m., finalizing seating arrangements and confirming details with the caterer. As I crawled into bed, exhausted but satisfied, I wrote in my diary, "Tomorrow will be perfect. They deserve nothing less after everything they've done for me. I can't wait to see their faces when they open the turkey tickets. Maybe this will finally be enough." Little did I know that in less than 24 hours, that entry would seem like it was written by a different person entirely. A naive woman who still believed she was the beloved daughter in a happy family narrative rather than someone's biggest regret. The day of the anniversary party arrived with perfect Karachi weather, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of jasmine across the rooftop. Guests began arriving at 5 p.m., bearing gifts wrapped in gold paper and sharing stories about Imran and Noor's early days together. I moved between the kitchen and rooftop, checking on the catering, refreshing juice pitchers, and ensuring everyone was comfortable. Ami looked radiant in her emerald shalwar kameez, her henna-dyed hair styled elegantly, while Baba stood tall in his sherwani, greeting old friends with warm embraces. Around 7 p.m., as the sunset cast a golden glow, I tapped a spoon against my glass and proposed a toast to 25 years of showing us what love looks like. May we all be fortunate enough to build what you have. Everyone clapped as my parents shared a smile. For that moment, surrounded by people who loved them, they looked genuinely happy. After dinner, while guests mingled and enjoyed gulab jamun, I headed to the kitchen to prepare the anniversary cake for its grand presentation. Through the window, I saw my parents sitting with their closest friends, the Siddiquis and the Maliks, under the canopy. They were laughing, glasses of rose sherbet in hand, the kind Baba saved for special occasions. I was about to turn away when I heard my name, freezing me in place. "Aisha is a wonderful daughter," Mrs. Siddiqui said. "You're so lucky she stayed in Karachi. Our kids moved abroad the minute they graduated." There was a pause. Then Baba's voice, loosened perhaps by the sherbet and nostalgia, responded in a tone I'd never heard before. "Sometimes I wonder about that. Having Aisha changed everything, if I'm honest. If we hadn't had her when we did, we could have taken that job in London. Noor could have pursued her novel." My hands froze on the cake box as Ami's voice drifted clearly through the open window. "Remember that offer from the university in Dubai? We were ready to go when I found out I was pregnant." She sighed, a sound so wistful it twisted my heart. Sometimes I wonder what our lives would have been like. I hate to say it, but there are days I regret it, too. The cake box slipped from my numb fingers, crashing to the floor in a mess of cream and broken glass. I barely noticed, my ears ringing with the sting of their words. Mr. Malik's awkward laugh cut through. "Come now, you don't mean that. Aisha's a lovely girl." "Of course she is," Baba replied quickly. "We love her dearly. But you can love someone and still recognize they changed your path." "We had such different plans before she came along," Ami added softly. "We were so young. 23. We had the world at our feet, and suddenly we were tied to a flat in Karachi, building the stable life a child needs." My vision blurred as tears spilled down my cheeks. I stood frozen, unable to step away from the window, subjecting myself to more painful truths as they continued. And then, when Bilal came along, it was too late to change course, Baba said. Though at least he's living the adventurous life abroad. That's why we never pushed Aisha to move out, Ami explained. It felt wrong after everything to push her away when she wanted to stay close. The bitter irony hit me. I'd stayed for them, thinking they wanted me near, while they'd allowed it out of guilt, perhaps resenting my presence all along. Every sacrifice I'd made, every dream abandoned, had been to please parents who saw me as the anchor of their unfulfilled ambitions. I stumbled back from the window, barely reaching the bathroom before sobs overtook me. Memories flooded back, reframing themselves with cruel clarity. Ami's tight smile when I declined the Islamabad position to stay local. Baba's distracted nod when I mentioned giving up my art scholarship. The way they enthusiastically supported Bilal's move abroad while encouraging me to remain in Karachi. All these years, I'd seen their behavior as love, when perhaps it was obligation. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Kohl smudged down my cheeks, and saw a stranger. Who was I beyond being Imran and Noor's perfect daughter? What parts of me had I silenced to maintain their approval? How could I keep living in their home, sharing meals, knowing I was their biggest regret? When I emerged, face washed and composure fragile, the party continued around me. I moved through the remaining hours mechanically, serving salvaged cake, accepting compliments for my planning, smiling until my face ached. Ami and Baba remained oblivious to my inner collapse, accepting congratulations and reminiscing about their 25 years together. As the last guest left near midnight, Ami hugged me tightly. Everything was beautiful. Aisha, thank you for all your hard work. I hugged her back stiffly, wondering if she felt the shift between us. You deserve it, I replied, the words heavy as I realized the turkey tickets would stay hidden, a symbol of devotion to a family that never truly existed. That night, I wrote in my diary until dawn, pouring out decades of suppressed feelings, documenting the revelation that shattered my place in my family. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd given up everything to be the perfect daughter to parents who'd given up everything because of me, and none of us were happy. The week after the party unfolded in a detached haze, I moved through our home like a shadow, performing routines that had defined my life for 26 years while feeling disconnected from them. Baba left for work each morning with his usual chai I prepared. Ami graded papers at the dining table in the evenings. We ate together, discussed local news, and maintained normalcy while the truth lingered unspoken. I searched their faces for signs I'd misheard, but found only more evidence. On Monday, Baba flipped through a travel magazine at breakfast, pausing at a spread about Istanbul. The Maliks are planning a trip next year, he commented, not looking up. Must be nice to have that freedom at their age. I stirred my paratha silently, hearing the unspoken, the freedom they'd have had without me. That evening, Ami mentioned her university friend's recent book launch. She was always so talented, Ami said, her eyes distant. We were both accepted to that writing program. You know, life takes such different turns. Her smile seemed fragile as she patted my hand. But we all make our choices. By Wednesday, I couldn't bear it. During my clinic break, I called a property agent and arranged to view flats that evening. The agent, Sana, showed me a modest one-bedroom in a quiet Gulshan-e-Iqbal building, walking distance to the clinic, and, crucially, 20 minutes from my parents' home. The flat was simple beige walls, basic appliances, windows overlooking a small courtyard. But standing in the empty living room, I felt a spark of possibility. I'll take it, I told Sana, surprising us both with my decisiveness. I signed the lease that night, arranging to move in the following week. I told no one, not even Zara. This choice was mine alone. Perhaps my first truly independent one in years. At home. I began subtle separation. Each day, I packed a few personal items, photo albums, my favorite books, the small collection of sketches I'd kept hidden into my clinic bag. During shifts, I ordered essentials for the new flat, arranging deliveries after my move date. In quiet moments between patients, I researched art workshops at the local community center. The Karachi Art Council was hiring part-time curators, and I found myself applying during a break, a small act of reclaiming that made my heart race with both fear and excitement. My diary became my confidant, the only place I could express the storm of emotions. Each night, I wrote about my preparations, fears, and growing hope for a life reclaimed. I wonder who I might have been if I'd chosen differently. I wrote one evening, and more importantly, who I might still become. On Friday, Baba called me to his study to help with some documents. As I organized his desk, he leaned back, gazing at a framed photo of him and Ami in their 20s, trekking in Hunza Valley. "Life is strange." "Aisha," he said, his voice reflective. "You start out thinking you'll have all these adventures. Then reality sets in." He looked at me, not unkindly, but with resignation that cut deeply. "The responsible path isn't always the exciting one, is it?" I realized he wasn't just talking about himself. He was warning me, preparing me for the same surrender to duty that defined his life. The understanding horrified me. He couldn't imagine I still had choices, could still create a life of passion. To him, at 26, my path was set, just as his had been. The next morning, I overheard my parents discussing their child-free friends, the Rahims, who'd recently moved to a beachfront flat in Clifton. "They seem so relaxed," Ami remarked. "Saima said it's peaceful, having the place to themselves, coming and going as they please." Baba nodded. "Something to look forward to, I suppose." Ami laughed softly. "One day the house will be quiet. We can turn Aisha's room into that library you've always wanted." They weren't being cruel. They didn't know I was listening from the corridor. My hand pressed to my mouth to silence my breathing. They were voicing private thoughts, revealing truths they hid when I was present. My presence in their home was something they endured, not cherished. That night, I made my final decision. While my parents were at their weekly mehfil, I retrieved storage boxes from the storeroom, searching through childhood mementos with new perspective. I found handmade cards from primary school World's Best Ami, #1 Baba decorated with sequins and childish drawings, academic awards I'd earned, seeking their approval, certificates from Kathak classes I'd disliked but continued because Ami loved watching me perform. At the bottom of the last box, I found the letter from the National College of Arts, offering the scholarship I'd declined. Attached was a note from Ms. Farida. "Aisha, your talent is a gift that deserves to be nurtured. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Whatever you decide, never stop creating beauty." I clutched the letter, tears streaming, mourning the life I'd surrendered without understanding the cost. As dawn broke, I packed my remaining essentials into 2 suitcases. I wrote one final diary entry, the most honest words I'd ever written, laying bare the revelations, pain, and hope for healing through separation. I left the diary on my neatly made bed, alongside the envelope with the turkey tickets I'd never give them. The house was silent as I carried my bags to the car. My parents wouldn't wake for another hour, wouldn't discover my absence until they found my room emptied. The diary was my only explanation. As I pulled out of the driveway, watching the house fade in my rearview mirror, I felt heartbreak and liberation intertwined. The evening before my departure, I'd been drawn to the storeroom where my childhood mementos were preserved. My parents were at their book club, giving me hours to confront the evidence of my history with them. The storeroom air was heavy with dust and nostalgia as I switched on the bulb, illuminating boxes labeled in Ami's neat handwriting: Aisha Primary School, Aisha Secondary School, Aisha College. With trembling hands, I opened the first box, revealing layers of my past. Report cards with straight A's. Teacher comments praising my dedication. Aisha is a role model. Aisha shows great promise. Aisha exceeds expectations. Between them were handmade cards, Eid cards with glittery moons, birthday bookmarks proclaiming I love you to the stars and back. I traced my childish handwriting, remembering how desperately I'd wanted these offerings to prove my worth. In the college box, I found more painful artifacts, the art portfolio Ms. Farida had helped me compile, filled with sketches she'd called remarkable. The letter from the National College of Arts, offering the scholarship based on my submission. Paper-clipped to it was a note from Ms. Farida. I hadn't noticed before. Aisha, I've taught for 20 years and recommended only 2 students for this scholarship. Your talent isn't just skill, it's a unique vision. Please consider this path. Whatever you choose, promise you won't stop creating. I'd broken that promise for years, reducing my art to a hobby squeezed between clinic shifts and family duties. Beneath the portfolio was my medical school acceptance letter, which my parents had framed and displayed proudly. The contrast in their reactions to these achievements was stark. The final box held mementos from my college graduation, the program listing me as top student, photos of me in cap and gown with beaming parents, the journal they'd given me to record the start of your adult journey. That journal became the diary where I documented years of suppressed desires, culminating in the revelation that shattered my world. As I replaced these artifacts, a kindergarten art project caught my eye, a family portrait in crayon, stick figures labeled Ami, Baba, and me, under a bright orange sun. My 5-year-old self had added a 4th figure, explaining to my teacher I was saving space for my future sibling. Even then, I'd sensed something missing in our family. Bilal's birth 3 years later completed the picture but created new dynamics I was only now understanding. By the time I left the storeroom, carrying select items I couldn't leave behind, my resolve was firm. I couldn't remain the embodiment of my parents' compromised dreams. Each day in their presence reinforced the narrative that my existence had derailed their lives. The subtle resentment in their comments was poisoning whatever love existed between us. The next morning, my parents left for work with our routine intact, Baba accepting his chai, Ami reminding me about groceries, neither noticing my composed expression. The moment they left, I moved efficiently, transferring my bags to my car and sweeping my room to ensure nothing essential remained. The room looked untouched, bed made with the embroidered spread from college, bookshelves arranged, medical certificates framed. Only the missing photos and sketches hinted at my absence. I placed my diary in the center of the bed, its worn cover holding years of private thoughts, fears, and my explanation for leaving. Beside it, the envelope with the turkey tickets. My final entry spanned pages, starting with the conversation I'd overheard and tracing years of sacrifices I'd made to earn approval I now knew might never have been fully mine. I wrote about the art scholarship declined, the Islamabad position rejected, the flat offers from friends turned down, all to remain the perfect daughter to parents who might have preferred freedom from me. Most painfully, I documented realizing I'd built my identity around being what they needed, not who I could become. Yet, beneath the hurt, my words carried understanding. I don't blame you for these feelings. I wrote, we can't control emotions, only actions. And your actions, whatever your thoughts, were those of devoted parents. You gave me stability, education, love within your capacity. But I need to discover who Aisha is outside of being your daughter, outside of compensating for the dreams you surrendered when I came into your lives. Maybe in separation, we can all find something missing. As I placed my house key on the kitchen counter, a calm settled over me. There would be no dramatic confrontation, just the quiet dignity of removing myself from a dynamic that had limited us all. I took one final look around the home that had been my world for 26 years, then closed the door on the life I'd known. As I drove away, morning sunlight glinting off shop windows, The weight of performance began lifting. Whatever came next would be terrifying, uncertain, and entirely my own. The key to my new flat felt unfamiliar, its edges sharp. My footsteps echoed on the tiled floor as I carried in my suitcases. The emptiness of the space was both daunting and thrilling. This modest flat, with its plain walls and basic kitchen, was the first space that was mine, chosen without anyone else's needs in mind. I spent that first day in practical activity, accepting deliveries of a bed frame and mattress, unpacking my belongings, and listing essentials still needed. The tasks kept emotional overwhelm at bay, focusing me on immediate problems rather than the seismic shift in my life. By evening, exhaustion hit. I sat on my new mattress, eating biryani from a takeout container, when my phone buzzed with calls. Ami, Baba, Ami again. Texts followed. Where are you? Please call us. We're worried. I silenced the phone and kept eating, each bite an act of self-preservation. They'd found the diary. They knew why I'd left. Their urgent confusion suggested they hadn't expected consequences from their words, hadn't imagined their perfect daughter would step outside her role. The calls continued overnight and into the next morning, growing demanding. I texted a brief response before my clinic shift. I'm safe. I need space. Please respect that. After a 12-hour shift, I found 15 missed calls and a voicemail from Baba, veering between anger and confusion. Aisha Noor Khan, I don't know what you're doing, but your mother is distraught. Whatever you think you heard, you've misunderstood. We expect you home tonight to sort this out. The authoritative tone, so familiar from childhood, no longer held the same power. I deleted the message and drove to the community center for a Tuesday evening sketching class. For 2 hours, I lost myself in the joy of charcoal on paper, creating for the sake of creation. The instructor, a woman named Hina with henna'd hands, paused by my easel. You've done this before, she observed. There's confidence in those lines. I looked up, surprised by sudden tears. A lifetime ago, I admitted. She smiled. Welcome back, then. Those words followed me home, a blessing for the journey I'd begun. Days passed in a new rhythm clinic shifts, art classes, solo meals with books I'd always meant to read, tentative chats with neighbors. My parents' messages grew less frequent but more calculated, shifting to guilt. Baba's cholesterol is high. The house feels empty without you. We've always been close. What will people think? I maintained minimal contact, responding only to confirm my safety, refusing to engage until I felt solid in my new reality. An unexpected connection formed with my neighbor, Mrs. Raymond, a retired schoolteacher in her 60s. She caught me struggling with grocery bags one evening, insisting on helping despite her frail hands. Been watching you, young lady, coming and going, working clinic shifts, she said as she placed a bag on my counter. Reminds me of myself at your age. Her direct gaze, free of judgment, opened something in me. Over tea and her homemade pakoras, I shared my story of leaving. Mrs. Raymond listened, her hands cupped around her mug. Families are like gardens, she said when I finished. Sometimes a flower needs new soil to bloom, even when there's love in the old one. Her perspective offered clarity I needed. Our tea chats became regular. Mrs. Raymond sharing her journey from dutiful daughter to independent teacher. In late April, an email arrived from Shaukat Khanum Hospital in Lahore, responding to an application I'd forgotten in recent chaos. They offered a role combining pediatric care with art therapy for young patients, using both my medical and artistic skills. The position required relocating to Lahore, unthinkable weeks earlier. I sat with the opportunity, discussing it with Mrs. Raymond and my clinic supervisor, who supported the career move. When I responded with interest, scheduling an interview, I felt another piece of my identity click into place. Bilal called during this transition, having heard from our parents. They're stunned. Aisha, he said through the crackly Dubai connection. Baba thinks you're having a crisis. I laughed dryly. Of course, That's their view. Heaven forbid they see it as me breaking free. Bilal paused. You know, I always felt bad for leaving while you stayed, like I was shirking duty. You were living your life, I said, the realization sharpening. I was just good at not living mine. Another pause. For what it's worth, I think this is overdue. When you find who Aisha is beyond the perfect daughter, I'd love to know her. His support, free of pressure to reconcile, strengthened my resolve. In my flat, now becoming home, with art supplies on the windowsill table and medical books sharing space with novels, I began building a life guided by my own compass. The woman emerging from the perfect daughter's shell was still forming, her edges undefined but authentic. There were moments of doubt and loneliness, nights questioning every choice that led to this solitary life. But each day I moved on my own terms. The voice doubting my choices faded, while the voice affirming my right to choose grew stronger. The knock came on a Sunday morning, a week after I'd left. I was at my kitchen table, sketching the courtyard view over coffee, when the sharp rapping echoed 3 firm knocks, 2 softer ones. Baba's signature knock from my childhood. My heart pounded as I approached the door, pulse throbbing. Through the peephole, I saw them Ami clutching her dupatta. Baba's face set in the stern look that once intimidated me. I considered pretending I wasn't home, but Mrs. Raymond's words echoed, "Avoidance only delays the inevitable." I opened the door, struck by how they seemed smaller, less imposing than the figures who'd shaped my life. Ami's eyes were red from crying, the lines around her mouth deeper. Baba looked older, uncertainty softening his posture. "Aisha," Ami whispered, her voice breaking. We stood frozen for heartbeats, dutiful daughter and parents who'd defined and confined her, separated by more than a threshold. I stepped back, silently inviting them in. They entered cautiously, eyes scanning the modest flat with its sparse furniture and sketches on the walls. Ami moved toward a large sketch, a cityscape in charcoal. "You're drawing again," she said softly, with a trace of wonder. "I haven't seen your work since school." The observation hung, carrying questions about what she'd missed, what I'd suppressed. Baba stood by the door, hands in his pockets. "We read your diary," he said abruptly, defensive. "You had no right to vanish like that. We've been frantic." His familiar tactic accusing to control felt transparent now. I wasn't the Aisha who'd rushed to apologize. "Let's sit," I said, gesturing to my small sofa. We arranged ourselves awkwardly, parents on the sofa, me in the single chair, the coffee table a neutral zone. Ami spoke first, twisting her bangles. "Aisha, we're trying to understand your diary, what you wrote. You made it sound like we've been terrible parents, like we don't love you." How could you think that her confusion confirmed they hadn't realized how their words revealed decades of resentment, how they'd shattered my family narrative? "I heard you at the party," I said quietly, talking in the canopy about how having me derailed your lives, how you regret it. Their faces showed shock, recognition, then shame. Baba recovered first, justifying, "You misunderstood." "Aisha, we were reminiscing about choices, that's all. Everyone wonders about paths not taken. You said you regretted having me." I repeated, steady despite the pain. "Those were your words. Ami, there are days I regret it, too. After a lifetime trying to be worthy, to make up for what I took. Hearing that was I struggled for words to capture the collapse of my identity. It made everything clear." Ami began crying silently, tears falling. "It wasn't about you, Aisha, not really. We meant the timing, being young parents before we were ready. Of course, we don't regret you." "Then why did I grow up feeling I had to earn my place?" I asked, the question rising from deep within. Why did I spend 26 years trying to be perfect, not a burden, giving up everything to make you happy? Baba leaned forward, running a hand through his hair. "We never asked you to give up anything medicine, staying in Karachi." That was your choice. The bewilderment in his face cracked something open. Was it I challenged? When I got the art scholarship, you made it clear what you thought of art. When I was offered the Islamabad job, you talked about the empty house. You never asked directly, but your expectations were clear. Silence fell, broken by Ami's sniffling. When Baba spoke, his voice held rare vulnerability. My father said I was wasting my life choosing engineering over politics. He said slowly, he called it settling. I swore I'd never pressure my kids like that. He looked at me, horrified. I didn't realize I was doing it to you, just differently. Ami wiped her eyes. We had tough childhoods. Aisha, my parents were so critical, never pleased. I vowed to be different. She reached for my hand, but I wasn't ready. We thought we were supportive, praising your successes. We didn't mean to make our love seem conditional. As they spoke, a picture emerged of two people shaped by their own upbringings, unintentionally repeating patterns they'd sworn to avoid. Baba described his father's obsession with status, his disappointment in Baba's practical career. Ami shared her parents' coldness, their focus on achievement over joy, the constant moves for her father's job. When we learned we were expecting you, we were scared of repeating those mistakes, Ami said. We wanted stability, everything we didn't have. Maybe we overcorrected, focused too much on the perfect family. For the first time, I saw them not as all-knowing parents, but as flawed people doing their best with limited tools. I need you to understand, I said, meeting their eyes. I'm not leaving to punish you. I'm leaving to find who I am outside of being your daughter. I need to make choices for my desires, not your pride or happiness. Baba started to interrupt, but Ami stopped him. For the first time, I continued. I'm deciding without filtering through your approval. It's terrifying and exciting, and I need space. I'm not cutting you out, but our relationship must change. By the time they left 2 hours later, there was no neat resolution. The fractures couldn't heal in one talk, but something had shifted. They'd seen me stand in my truth, perhaps for the first time, and I'd glimpsed the wounded children shaping their actions, complicating my narrative of their motives. As I closed the door, watching them walk to their car, I felt the lightness of speaking long-held truths. We'd begun seeing each other clearly, a first step toward whatever our relationship might become. 6 months after leaving my childhood home, I stood at the window of my Lahore flat, watching monsoon rain soften the cityscape. The view was still fresh minarets piercing the skyline, the Ravi River a shimmering thread, so different from Karachi's coastal sprawl. My flat had taken shape, reflecting the person I was becoming. Sketches and mehendi designs adorned walls once reserved for medical certificates and family photos. Art supplies claimed the corner table where light was strongest, while medical journals shared shelves with art books and Urdu poetry. The transition wasn't smooth. My first month at Shaukat Khanum Hospital was overwhelming. The role combining pediatric care with art therapy pushing me beyond my comfort zone. I'd cried in staff rooms between sessions, doubting my qualifications and right to reinvent myself. But as young patients responded to my creative activities, as colleagues valued my input, a new confidence emerged, replacing the people-pleasing competence of my past career. My personal transformation was harder. My first eat alone, spent with hospital colleagues rather than at my parents' table, was tough. I called home that evening, the talk cautious, all of us navigating new ground. Since the confrontation, communication had shifted to weekly calls, more considerate than before. Ami began sending small packages local mangoes, clippings about Lahore art events, once a set of sketching pencils with a note. These reminded me of you. Baba's attempts were clumsier texts about weather, cricket scores, local news. Neither pressed for my return or visits, respecting my boundaries. In May, an email from Bilal announced his temporary assignment to a Lahore firm for 3 months. Thought we could finally have that chai. He wrote, in person this time. Our first meeting at a Goldberg cafe was tentative, both unsure how to connect outside our family structure. But conversation soon flowed. "I always envied you," he admitted over his second karak chai. "The perfect child who always knew how to please them." I nearly spilled my tea. "And I envied your freedom, your ability to leave without their expectations." We laughed, recognizing our misconceptions. Those chai dates became weekly, each peeling back family history, re-examining memories through adult eyes. Bilal shared that our parents were in therapy, individually and together. Baba asked if I saw our childhood like you did. He said, I was shocked. The idea of Baba in therapy, examining his parenting, was unthinkable a year ago. My own therapy with Dr. Saeed became vital. "Forgiveness isn't forgetting or excusing," he said in a tough session. "It's releasing the expectation the past could have been different. It's for you, not them." In June, tentative plans formed for an Eid al-Adha visit to Karachi, my first return since leaving. I'd stay 3 days. In a hotel, not my old room, focusing on new memories, not past hurts. The visit sparked anxiety, but also determination to rebuild our relationship healthier. In late July, I attended my first art exhibition as a participating artist. My sketch series, Transformation, displayed with other emerging Lahore artists. As I stood by my work, nervous, a familiar figure approached Mrs. Raymond, who'd traveled from Karachi despite the heat. "Couldn't miss your debut," she said, hugging me. "These sketches breathe. Aisha, they're alive." She shared neighborhood updates, the park renovation, the local bookshop's closure, the rhythms of the community I'd once known. Before leaving, she handed me a tissue-wrapped package. "Open it later," she said with a wink. That night, I unwrapped a leather-bound journal with handmade paper, its first page inscribed with a Faiz Ahmed Faiz quote, "Speak. Your lips are free. Speak. Your tongue is still yours." The words echoed as I opened the journal, writing not a diary, but a letter to my younger self, the dutiful daughter who'd surrendered dreams for love she already had. "You are enough," I wrote. "Your worth isn't in sacrifices. You deserve to exist unapologetically." As rain fell outside, softening Lahore's edges, I reflected on my path. The pain of my parents' words had sparked a necessary awakening. In losing the identity I'd clung to, I was finding the person beneath authentic, creative, wise. The journey wasn't done. There'd be tough talks, moments of slipping into old patterns, ongoing work to maintain boundaries. But in my flat, surrounded by my emerging self, I felt gratitude for the painful catalyst that forced me to claim my life. As I share this, I wonder how many of you have faced revelations or turning points that led to growth. Have you set boundaries with family? Painful, but freeing. I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this resonated, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of healing and transformation. Remember, sometimes the most painful endings become the most necessary beginnings. Thank you for witnessing my journey. Aisha's journey offers profound lessons about self-discovery and the courage to redefine one's identity. Her story teaches us that love, even within families, can carry unspoken expectations that shape our choices in ways we may not initially recognize. By confronting the painful truth of her parents' regrets, Aisha learned to prioritize her own aspirations, showing that personal growth often requires breaking free from roles we've been assigned, even at the cost of discomfort or conflict. Her decision to set boundaries and pursue a life aligned with her passions underscores the importance of authenticity over approval. Ultimately, Aisha's transformation reminds us that while family ties are significant, our responsibility to ourselves to honor our dreams and forge our own paths is equally sacred. And sometimes, the most painful endings pave the way for the most liberating beginnings. Thank you, my incredible listeners, for joining me on this deeply personal journey through Aisha's story of self-discovery and resilience. Your support means the world, and I'm truly grateful for every moment you've spent witnessing this transformative tale. If Aisha's courage to reclaim her life resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and join our community for more stories of healing and empowerment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, sharing how this story touched you or any lessons it sparked. Your feedback fuels these narratives. So let's keep the conversation going and continue inspiring each other.